Hi, I'm Scott. Welcome back to Synth Stuff. Today we're going to be doing a Juno-106 challenge to see if you can tell the difference between the real Juno-106 and one of the Roland emulations. Coming up. Now that I have a Juno-106 and it's working and in like new condition, if you didn't see the series I did on the restoration of the Juno-106, I will put a link to it up here somewhere. Now, I have had a Juno-106 modeled in my System-8, and the Fantom-6 also has the Juno-106 model expansion in it, and of course you have it available in Roland Cloud. I thought, well, while I'm still on my Roland Cloud free trial, and I haven't canceled it yet, but I will before they charge me, but now that I have it, I thought I'm going to take that and test it against the other Juno-106 models, and then we'll test that against the real thing and see what the differences actually are. So the Juno-106 is obviously an analog synthesizer. It is the genuine article, the real thing, an actual analog Juno-106. The Juno-106 model inside the System-8 is an ACB model, or analog circuit behavior, where they actually model the electronic components inside the Juno-106. So the end result of the sound that you get out of the System-8 should be, in theory, exactly the same as what you get out of the Juno-106. The Fantom-6 is a little bit different. It has its Zen-core engine in there, and it uses ABM, or analog behavior modeling, whereas the ACB takes quite a bit of processing power to model the circuitry and all the different things that are happening in that circuitry. Instead, the model of the Juno-106 expansion in the Fantom-6, what they do is they take the end result and they kind of go backwards. They say, well, we know that if you twist the filter, it affects it this way. So let's model what that filter actually does in terms of harmonics and frequencies and so on. And then we'll just create a filter with that same profile in it, that sort of thing. And then, of course, we have the Juno-106 Roland Cloud VST, which is the same engine that's in the Roland 8. It's ACB. So in theory, the Roland System-8 and the Juno-106 Cloud should sound identical. And if we extend that, they should also sound like the Juno-106. Clearly, all of them should sound like a Juno-106, but they don't. So let's go with the first challenge. I have 3 different sounds created, and I created just a little 3 or 4 bar piece of each sound, and I'm going to play it on each of the 4 different synths, but I'm not going to tell you which one is which. I'll tell them after each sound. The first one's kind of a lead sound, so let's have a listen to the lead sound played on all 4 synthesizers. And now I am sending the exact same MIDI to all of them, so what you're hearing is the exact same notes with the exact same timing and everything else being played by each of the 4 synths, and you can hear the difference. So get a piece of paper out and write down which one do you think it is. We have System-8, the Roland Cloud, the Fantom-6, and the Juno-106. Here we go. All right, what did you think? Do you think you can pick out the actual Juno from that? I have to say that while I've been recording this and trying it out, I have been listening to the differences, and I can pick out the real Juno pretty much every time now without fail. So I don't know if that's good or bad. The very first one, what did you think that was? That one is actually Roland Cloud. That's the VST. All right, the second one, number 2, this one. And that one is the actual Juno-106. All right, number 3. And that's the Fantom-6. And of course, that means the last one, the fourth one, is the System-8. Okay, so how did you do on that one? Now you should have an idea of what the different synths sound like compared to one another. Let's see how you do with the second one. For the second one, I thought I'd come up with kind of a resonant pad, and there's a little bit of an LFO in there, and a slow LFO that's modulating the filter. And you'll hear that. I'm trying to demonstrate the different parts of the synth, and the filters and the LFO and so on, so you can hear the differences between the different models. So let's go ahead and listen to all 4 now. All right, do you think you got them? Let's go over what they were. The first one was the True Blue Juno-106. The second one was Roland Cloud. And the third one was the System-8. And the fourth one was the Fantom-6. You could really hear a difference in the Fantom-6 just because of how the filter envelope is modeled, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end. Okay, so now we've got the third sound. For the third one, I went with a bass sound because the Juno-106 can just create thundering bass lines. So let's listen to this little bass line piece that I put together and see if we can figure out which one's which. Get your paper ready. All right, the first one was the System-8. The second one was the Fantom-6. The third one was the Juno-106. And that means the last one was the Roland Cloud VST. So let me tell you a little bit about how I did this and some of the difficulties that I had. I started with some presets that were in Roland Cloud. They're also in the System-8, and then I modified those presets just to save some time, because this took a really long time to do this, to setting up for this video. So I can edit the sounds in Roland Cloud on the computer, or I can edit them on the System-8. Either way, Roland Cloud allows you to transfer patches back and forth. If you create a patch on the System-8, the Roland Cloud instance will play it, and vice versa. If I set it up on Roland Cloud, I can transfer it into System-8 and it will play it, and they're compatible that way. For the most part, they're identical. I know there are some differences, and it's been talked about on various forums. Just in the engine that's inside this, the hardware engine is a little bit different than the code that runs in your DAW. And there are some outlying problems that cause differences between the two, but for the most part, they sound alike, except that the VST instance in the Roland Cloud is taking digital output and it's never seeing analog ever. It's generating its signal completely in the digital realm, and it's sending that digital data to your DAW, and it's recording it as digital data. So it is pure digital, it's never seeing analog. Whereas in the System-8, it is definitely seeing analog, because I'm taking the analog out from here, it's going into my mixer where it's being digitized and then sent to the DAW. So there is that analog step, and just because of that, to me, the Roland Cloud sounds crisper and brighter, but I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because it almost sounds too good. It sounds digital. It doesn't really sound that analog to me. It sounds like a digital emulation of analog, which obviously is what it is, but it's not supposed to sound like that. It's supposed to sound like a Juno-106, and it sounds too bright and perfect to me. So once I did get those patches set up on the System-8 and in the Roland Cloud, I had to recreate them on both the Fantom and the original Juno-106. The patches in Roland Cloud cannot be transferred into the Fantom-6. They are not compatible. It's a different engine entirely. So I had to more or less deconstruct the patches that I had done, which you can do, because on the Roland Cloud, it shows you all the controls. So in theory, you should be able to take those controls and just set the same sliders and everything on the Juno-106 and get the same sound. No, it doesn't work that way. The controls on the Roland Cloud instance are representative of how Roland Cloud works. It's not really, it doesn't really have anything to do with the position of the controls on the actual Juno-106. And in fact, the Roland Cloud has multiple envelopes and a whole bunch of other extra features in there that don't exist on the original Juno-106. So you can't really emulate everything on the actual Juno-106 hardware that you can do in the Roland Cloud version of the Juno-106. So I really just had to take those, put them into the synth, and then just over the course of several hours, just tweak consistently until I got the sound as absolutely as close as I could get. On the Juno-106, it was very, very close. I was able to get it very, very close to the sound that I had created in the emulation of the Juno-106. You would think you should do the other way around, create it on the Juno-106 and then put it on the emulations. But because I was able to start with presets that saved me a whole lot of time, that the same one could be used in the System-8 and the Roland Cloud. However, when it came to the Fantom-6, that was another story altogether. That engine, it resembles a Juno-106. It has most of the same controls as a Juno-106, but it does not sound the same as a Juno-106. The filters in particular were very difficult to get sounding the same, and I'm sure you heard differences in filtering and resonance between the other three, which sound very much alike, and the Fantom-6 version of the Juno-106. Because of the limitations of the Fantom-6, you can't really get the sounds perfect. You can get really close, but I could tell every time that, hey, that's the Fantom-6 and that's not one of the other three. Primarily because of the filter, but sometimes because the envelope. I think the envelope slopes maybe are a little bit different, but it really made me think, because when I got the Fantom-6, I thought, well, the Fantom-6 has a Jupiter 8 expansion, it has the Juno-106 expansion, it has an SH-101 expansion in it, so it's got all of these expansions in there that let you emulate those synths, and I thought, well, maybe I don't need a Juno-106 or the SH-101, or maybe I don't need the System-8 because it's got those emulations as well. Maybe the Fantom can do all of that. But after having done this challenge, I realized, no, that's not the case. The Fantom might be good for playing those live or using those types of sounds, but for actually emulating those synths, it's not good enough. The analog behavior modeling is just not close enough to the actual real thing. The ACB, the analog circuit behavior, extremely close. If you get those patches really dialed in, it's tough to tell which one you're listening to. I can pick the Fantom out every time. That's kind of disappointing to me. I thought the Fantom would do a whole lot better. I could also pick out the Juno-106 every time because it's a little bit softer. It's warmer and softer. There's not quite as much as in the top end, and I suspect that's simply because the sound in it is working its way through 40-year-old analog components inside, it's 40-year-old op amps and capacitors and things in there. So it's not going to sound like it did when it was brand new. And that said, in the Juno-106 Roland Cloud version, it was overly bright and crisp. It sounded too good. It didn't sound like an analog synthesizer, especially a 40-year-old analog synthesizer. For that reason, when I was listening back to these, I was able to pick out each of the synths each time. Without question, I knew the Juno-106. Without question, I knew the Fantom-6. The Juno-106 was kind of the less bright and warmer bottom end. The Fantom-6 had the filters that just weren't quite right. The hard ones was picking out the System-8 from the Roland Cloud because they are literally the identical engine, and the only difference is the analog portion of its signal chain, which did dull the sound just a tiny perceptible amount. That meant the Roland Cloud ended up being more bright and crisp and allowed me to pick it out. I'm gonna have to come back to this video maybe 6 months and try it again and see if I still get it. I mean, I'm kind of tainted now because I've been working and listening to these sounds for the better part of a day in order to set up this video, but it'll be interesting to see if I can still pick them out 6 months from now. So how many did you get right? Write in the comments below how many you got, how many you missed, what you thought of the different sounds. What do you think of the emulations? What did you think of the actual Juno-106 compared to the Roland Cloud version? If you have any other questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. And if I could ask you just to take 10 seconds, click like if you liked the video, leave a comment, say, hey, this is a good video, I appreciated what you did, or hey, I wish you had done that. Doing that really helps me out because it tells the YouTube algorithm that, hey, you like this video, you're interacting with me, and therefore it should show my videos to other people who also love synthesizers, just like you. I think it's something like 15% of the people that watch my videos actually subscribe to the channel. There are lots of people that come back and watch the videos, but they don't subscribe. I don't understand why. But if you do like what you see here, please subscribe. It really helps me out. It lets me know that there's people that appreciate what I'm doing here, and it helps, again, the YouTube algorithm. The more subscribers there are, the more people they send my way to view these videos, and the more videos I can make. All right, that's it. I hope you like what you saw. Thanks for watching.